Welcome everyone. Thank you for stopping by and listening in. My name is Martin Chi. I'm the CFO and co-founder of Amica. Our topic for discussion today is how accountants can encourage resistant clients to embrace tech. Today we have three wonderful guests joining us today. Guys, if you wouldn't mind, could you just provide us with a brief introduction to yourselves? Maybe let's start with you, Chris.
No worries. So my name is Chris Allen. I'm a business development manager here at Spotlight Reporting. Specifically, I take care of our new partners in New South Wales, and I get a lot of good insight into how firms run their business advisory.
Awesome. Alicia? You're on mute, Alicia. There we go. It's still not working. Technical difficulties.
Okay.
You can jump into it. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Is that better?
Bit of reverb. It might be because you're in the same room as Kian there.
Let me try this a little bit better.
Yeah, maybe she can jump back in with you, Kian.
Should I? She's just jumping. Yeah, we're just
cool.
That's all good. My name is Kian Garamani, and I'm a principal at RSM Australia. I sit in the business advisory division. So we work on a day-to-day basis with just SME business owners, not only around compliance, but also day-to-day management of business decisions, whether it's got a tax aspect to it or a commercial approach to it as well, and advise on those.
Awesome. And Alicia's going to pop her head in any minute. Is your office close by, Kian?
She's just ducked into the. I can hear the door now closed.
There you are.
Hi everyone, sorry about that.
All good. We're good now.
I swear I know a little bit about technology. I'm Alicia from RSM. I am the strategic outsourcing lead here in Sydney. I look after a team of specialists that manage the day-to-day accounting for our clients, generally looking after the accounting function. We do a lot of digital implementations and looking at clients' ecosystems to ensure that their finance function is efficient as possible, and then flow on to sort of reporting for the key stakeholders of the business.
Great. So I thought before we get started, I'd throw in some statistics questions related to our topic of discussion. So first question for you guys, can you guess what percentage of senior executives feel too old to learn data analysis skills? Chris, what's your guess?
Oh, gotta be careful here. With the options you've given me, maybe 53, 34, 53, one of those two.
Yeah. Alicia?
I was going to say 53%. Yeah.
Kian, what do you reckon?
Right up there, 79%.
79. Oh man, low expectations of senior executives. So yeah, 53%. Which I thought that's still pretty high these days, but I guess like the word senior probably implies a bit of age there too, which potentially is skewing that statistic. But I think also what that highlights is that if you've got potentially some people within your own business that are lacking in, I guess that confidence or that ability to feel like they can learn analysis skills, then that inertia is probably going to present a bit of a challenge in terms of then trying to promote tech and data analysis to your clients. The second question that I had was, what percentage of small business owners feel that they have a well-defined data strategy to help them to drive business decisions? So Chris, what do you reckon?
I think the key part of that question is well defined. I think that small business owners probably try their best to make data-driven decisions, but in a lot of cases, they're tradesmen or they're specific skill set in a certain service, and that's not in the aspect of data analysis. So well defined, probably not. I think that a lot of people nowadays are trying their best too, though.
And in terms of percentage, what percentage do you reckon?
Probably over 50. Could be completely wrong there.
Well, we'll find out. Alicia?
I would probably say at the lower end. I agree with Chris. Essentially, I think they've got a broader overview, but that detailed analysis of their business probably less so, particularly in the SME space. I don't think that it's not at their ability or their fingertips these days with technology, but they're not fully across that yet either. I'd probably see at the lower end, maybe 30%.
Mm-hmm. Kian, what do you reckon?
Look, yeah, I think Chris hit the nail on the head on that, right? You don't know what you don't know. So the percentage that actually feel that they are is probably in that 50 to 60. But if you break it down to who is actually got useful data and they're doing it, I'd drop that down to the 30 to 40%.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a delusionally high percentage from the business owner's perspective, but the reality is a bit lower. Yeah, so it was 30% that felt that they had a well-defined data strategy to help them to drive business decisions. And I think, given that relatively low percentage, that kind of highlights the size of the opportunity, not just for accountants, but, for technology providers as well to assist in driving the adoption of tech and allowing, people to benefit from it. Before we get started into the webinar topic questions, I'd like to mention that for those of you guys that are listening at home or at work, if you have any questions that you'd like to send through to us, please feel free to do so over the course of the webinar, and we'll endeavour to answer those at the end. Okay, let's get started. So, fairly easy one. Chris, I reckon this one's a good one for you from the perspective of a Spotlight. How important is it for accountants to adopt technology that provides timely, accurate data to their clients?
Yeah, so to be really succinct, it's very important. I think that small business owners have a lot of friends, they have professional networks, and they love to whinge about accounting fees if all their accountant provides them is kind of tax and compliance work once a year. They would then associate paying taxes and letting go of some of their hard-earned money with an additional accounting fee on top of that. What I'm seeing a lot of changes in the business advisory aspect of things. And a good business advisor becomes kind of irreplaceable, a key part of the management team. And they're entirely dependent on timely and accurate data. So the insights you can get vary client to client, but can be hugely valuable and help kind of move from that tax and compliance worker that maybe you're associating a cost with handing over money to a really valuable part of the business operation.
Yeah, and I know, I guess from the perspective of what we do at Amaker, I mean, timely and accurate, it's just like, if you're talking about reporting and decision making, obviously those two attributes are positively correlated, with that. Alicia or Kian, did you want to add anything in here?
Oh, look, I mean, Chris is absolutely correct. And the key or the secret and the source over there is to think like an advisor and not an accountant. And from a business survivability point of view, clients expect more. Old data is irrelevant, and it is very much redundant the moment you get it if it's longer than a couple of weeks old. You kind of look at some of the great business leaders. Jeff Bezos, I know is famous for saying that what has disrupted business for the last sort of 20, 30 years was the internet, and what the next internet is going to be data and data-driven decisions, and what is really going to create growth and business opportunities going forward. So having timely, accurate data is paramount for that growth, paramount for that business and the accountants as well, and also obviously drives efficiencies that you won't be able to get in the older methods.
Cool. All right, that was an easy one to get started. We'll ramp it up from here. I think this one's probably a good one for you, Alicia, given that you're on the kind of implementation side of things at RSM with clients. What type of technologies have you seen clients be, perhaps a little bit more resistant about, and how can you build trust in these technologies? Alicia, are you frozen or you're mute?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I froze a little bit, so I missed that. Sorry.
No, all good, all good. I was saying this question's a good one for you on the implementation front at RSM.
Generally, most resistance is anything outside the general financial management system, I found. So your bills and management expense system, a really good payroll system that's needed for any clients that are on like awards, even through to reporting. Not so much just the general reporting, but more sort of forward-looking reporting. I think the value in those systems are still well underestimated. It might seem like a big project if you were to do it by yourself. It is a good opportunity to sort of look out there and find someone to support you. We've seen benefits tenfold for implementing something as simple as a bills and management expense system for a client. Just for example, I had a client a few weeks ago who has a business with something like 30 entities, had no bills management expense system, thought it was a waste of their time to invest in, had a full-time employee sitting there for a day and a half a week processing bills and expenses, which weren't many. I think there was roughly about 60 a week. After implementing a simple system, they've been able to regain that full-time employee's FTE of 1.5 days, time to reinvest in different areas of the business where there's no value add for someone sitting there and data entering that. So they're now getting that done. They've got the time back from that full-time employee. And now that they've got time to invest somewhere else in the business, and they can actually see what their expenditure is doing throughout the week, as opposed to sort of a bit delayed. So simple things like that. Same with payroll and the same with reporting. Lots of businesses aren't investing in reporting just yet, but they see it as a sort of a big hill to climb. For things simple as just plug for Chris, Spotlight Reporting can easily be tacked on and start to produce them some insights into their cash flow, which we've all seen for the last couple of years has been really important to businesses to survive.
Do you think the resistance comes from like a particular place? Like, are there different sources of resistance from within the business? Is it like a personality thing? Is it a behavioral thing?
It could be personality or behavioral. I think it's support. I think it's where they're getting their support from. Generally, when we've stepped in as the advisor and been able to step in as the advisor and support them through this, I've seen all those sort of fears and concerns go away. I think anyone out there that doesn't have that support, I can understand where the resistance lies. You really need someone that knows what they're doing. Otherwise, I've seen some implementations go really bad. And then that just sort of tarnishes their thought process to reach out to any other type of ecosystem app to add onto it. So I think it's really down to support and the knowledge.
Okay. Chris or Kian, anything to add to this one?
I mean, one predominant one, and I think it's coming up there at sort of, equal highs is, AI and automation tools. We're sensing it. And I think it's more the human nature of, if you think you do things the best way yourself, and there's always that need to check. I've been guilty of that sometimes, going, well, I'll just do it myself or go through it. So, and we all know you can't do that with large mass data involved. So the AI and automation tool is probably something that I've noticed. A certain level of distrust that's inbuilt when you get to that. So there's the work for the likes of Chris and also the accountants and the advisors is to show and demonstrate, no, that it's got its purpose, it's got its role, and it can do what it needs to do without any errors in there.
I think that, look, I think that's a great point that you highlighted. You got to show and demonstrate. It's not enough to be talking about it. You got to do like the live demos and take the customer through and sort of give them a bit of an opportunity to understand how that's going to add value specifically within their business. And I think what I would add to that is that that customer support side of the building trust is so important, whether it's hand holding in the implementation side of things, or, when inevitably things, go wrong, either from a user error perspective or from a technology perspective, that a human is there to kind of pick up the pieces and get things back on track. Laura, next question. Oh, no, sorry, Chris, unless you wanted to.
That's all good. Yeah, I do have a little bit to add. Just to tack on to what you said earlier, Martin, about where the resistance is coming from, be it personality or behavior. I think I'd add a third to that, and that's fatigue. I think everyone's been watching their subscription cost line just increase over the last 2 years constantly, and it never seems to go the other direction. So to overcome that, and it sort of ties into building trust, I think communication is kind of the key element there, making sure that your client understands what the problem is and understands how you're going to solve it. Once you've got something up and running and it's kind of, doing what it's supposed to, it'll pitch its own case. You'll never have to pitch it again. But the early objections of, is this just going to be another cost on my P&L, are the hardest parts to get over. And I think usually the more abstract tools are harder with those value propositions. Things like data processing and optimization, AI, as you said, Kian, they can cut out a huge amount of kind of manual work and inaccuracy. But in that early stage, having somebody hold your hand through the process, or just communicating exactly what the problem is and exactly how you're going to solve it is kind of the key to building trust there.
Awesome. Yeah, no, great answer. All right. What are the key aspects accounting practices look at when selecting their technology stack, and how much is the end client considered from the outset? So probably another good one for you, Alicia, from RSM's perspective, do you guys have like checklists, or do you have like a workflow that you guys work through, when you're selecting particular apps or particular technology for clients?
Yeah, so we've got a range of different people that look across apps for our clients and apps internally. We have governance, where we run through a SaaS checklist and run through all of the requirements there, both internally and for our clients. We have a digital business as well that assists us run through the apps that we need to be across, and the apps that's more an operational side for our clients. It's super important to us. At the end of the day, we need to understand the security of the app, the user friendliness, the accessibility. We need to understand that for us as the advisor and the accountant looking after the client, and the client long-term as well. So if we don't have buy-in from our staff or our clients, no one's going to utilize the app, and it's just going to be a wasted implementation. So we do spend a lot of time both internally and for our clients understanding the requirements of what they need, the existing pain points, and then sort of assessing a few apps in the market, understanding what's the right app that's going to be best suited to them. Probably when we're looking off the shelf apps, we have to remember we're probably only going to find 90% of their requirements. We're never going to we'll find the solution for 100% with an off the shelf app. Make sure that they understand the limitations, and then implement, monitor and train. So it's quite an important and long process for whether we're dealing with our own internal app ecosystem or for our clients. So it's super important. Yeah.
And so is there like a grading process that you do if you're comparing, like, let's say you're picking an inventory management app, like sort of
generally, if it's for an external client, we're looking at providing them a report, do a feature analysis across the three, provide them the features that have specifically spoken to us about what they need, but also what we think that they might need or need to be aware of. A lot of the things that some of our clients don't think about are some things like security or accessibility or user friendliness when they're implementing an app. And then we talk through that and we work through them and see, essentially we want them to make the decision. We're here to support them as much as possible, but it's about getting them and their team involved from the start, because they're the people that will ultimately using the system in the end process. We don't look at apps in silo as well. We do make sure that we're taking into consideration their whole ecosystem, rather than just plugging in an app, or otherwise it's just not going to flow through to everything at the end. So yeah, actually a feature analysis, and then sort of talk through and support your client understand how it will roll out.
So from the perspective of the end client, like you're fairly agnostic in terms of the apps that you might suggest and promote?
Yes, definitely. We obviously have our tool belt of our go-tos, ones that all of our advisors are across, the simple ones for small businesses that don't need anything too bespoke. But when we meet a client, we know that hits that limitation or they need something a little bit more specific, we go out into the ethos and look around for the right apps for them. So it's client by client basis, but we know as an accounting business, we do sort of need to hone in and be across some platforms really well. That's how we can continue to support our clients nationally and more efficiently, rather than being spread too thin across the, I don't know how many apps are out there in the ecosystem now, thousands.
Too many. Yep.
It's just not possible. So we aim to have a few niche ones we are across fully, but then always comfortable to go out there and find what they need specifically.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say that's such a challenge, particularly from the accounting firm perspective. It's like, there's an endless amount of apps out there, and you're trying to scale the service that you're providing or provide it efficiently to the client. And if every single client is using a different suite of apps, it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way my first few years, about 6 years ago, when I was trying to build out the service line at my old firm. I thought I had to be across all 700 apps, and that's how I was going to service my clients. A bit naive. But now I know if we can sort of look after 90% of our clients using a simple set, an app stack, we can service them a lot better and a lot more efficient.
Kian or Chris, did you want to add?
Look, for me, I always bring it back. It's an investment, right? So we look at the approaches as a normal business investment should be. Everything Alicia's mentioned in there is, again, from that practicality and the usage of it. But take it a next step further. If this is something you're going to be using for 5-10 years, we actually then look at the organization behind it. We look at the company. How old are they? Who are some of their other clients? Are they funded? Is there financial backing? The last thing you want to do is do a rollout and then have the pin pulled from it within a couple of months to say, well, we're shutting down. And then the other big thing is, I think, and Alicia touched on it, was the security side of it. Obviously, data privacy is a very big thing, more and more so over the last couple of years, and it will get bigger and bigger as we go. Data sovereignty, and there are implications on that. There's been court cases around data centers being based in overseas locations, who then their local governing agencies can get access to it and go through your corporate transactions or history and all that as well. So they're all the multifacets you got to look at on a whole holistic approach.
I think Alicia and Kian have covered most of what I would have said. Might go for low-hanging fruit here, though, and just address the second part of that question. And sort of everything has to have the end client considered from the outset, even if you're addressing internal processes, something like a CRM or a proposal system where it's just something that you use. Ultimately, you're just trying to cut down on wasted time, increase efficiency, and that has to get back to the client at some point. Is it going to allow you to offer the same quality service for slightly less and you can onboard more clients? Is it going to allow you to be more responsive and give them more value add? So I would think always just address in your mind, in your internal process, how it's going to benefit your clients, and then by proxy or filter down to your business as a firm.
Martin, there's a comment here from Michael. Do you want to answer along the way, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, I think that, I was just reading that. I think that's a great one. I don't know if Alicia, Chris, you can see that, but Michael sent through a question.
Yeah, I'd love to give a real life example, because Alicia and I are actually working with one now, and something like this is something that is on our schedule of items to address. And typically we look at things again from an investment point of view. So we've asked for their development pipeline. What do you consider? What's the future track for this program? We know where their funding's going. Some of the things that I mentioned earlier kind of crosses this, but they're questions I'll be asking. Now, I appreciate that we as an organization can do that, because we're going to go, if we're going in partnership with a supplier, and they will show it to us. But any good app developer would have some outlet where you can kind of reach out and talk to their sales team or talk to their devs team, or by way of virtue of the sales team, to say, hey, where are you guys going with this? My needs are going to grow. Are you going to grow with me? So Definitely agree. Yeah, it's a great question to consider at the beginning as well.
Yeah, so part of that, what is the support like? I think that's one of the most important questions you can really ask an app team. A few years ago, I won't name names, but there was a reporting and forecasting app that were quite big in the Australian market, based out of a different country. They had no one in region, and support tickets were taking over a day to get resolved in most cases. I know this because people come to us, and it seems to be something that they were burned with in quite a large number across the industry. So when they evaluate Spotlight, they're obviously comparing it from the previous solution they picked. And I get lots of feedback on how important support was and how kind of crippling it is when you have a problem that you can't resolve. And if you can't resolve it for a day, 2 days, and it doesn't really matter if there's a deadline and you can't move the deadline, it means you're dead in the water. So having, I think, non-automated support is really important. Actual humans that you're speaking to, and a support structure where there's always the ability to escalate it to a phone call or a Zoom meeting if the problem is urgent enough and complicated enough to warrant that. But certainly it's really important that you have someone in time zone. You're not relying on automated bots or kind of intercoms or chat bots on the website. Support's like essential.
Yep. Awesome. All right, next question. All right, this is a bit of an interesting one. What are overlooked technologies that accountants and their clients should consider adopting? I suspect I know your answer, Chris.
Yeah,
I
think we do pretty well. Sorry?
I think you actually surprised us with your answer. I think I said reporting.
Yeah. So I guess it's hard from where I sit because everyone I speak to is not overlooking reporting.
Yeah.
It's what they're specifically speaking to me about. I think that obviously more firms should use Spotlight Reporting, and I wouldn't be allowed to come on this webinar without saying something like that. But one thing I've noticed from a business development perspective is that a lot of firms kind of overlook their marketing and sales functions. And I've seen some really good firms be really progressive with their marketing. In the past, firms have been quite reliant on referrals. Referrals are fantastic. They do make up the vast majority of new business in the accounting industry. And they're really easy sales to close because you come with the trust of a trusted advisor that's obviously referred the prospect to your business. But there's so much left on the table in terms of marketing automation, putting out ad campaigns through LinkedIn or Google AdWords, being really specific about some key services that you offer that maybe there's excess demand for in the market, like business advisory. I think there's a huge amount of small businesses that don't even know it's a thing that their accountant can do for them. And if you can be loud about it, there's a good chance that you can win clients from accounting firms that aren't necessarily happy with the service they're currently getting. It's just making sure that people that you'd like to work with know who you are and what you do and why it's different from some of your competitors. But certainly marketing technology is hugely overlooked, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there for accountants to adapt it.
And interestingly, is that something that Alicia and Kian, like on the client side, sales and marketing style apps that plug into the finance function? Like, is that something that you guys have done or have a lot of experience in?
More so our digital business, look after anything more operational than outside the sort of finance function, which is my sort of niche. But yeah, I do know from their side that is an untapped area for a lot of our clients that they're looking to assist our clients with this year. I think they're quite surprised in the data that they can see across all of our clients' files, what they do and don't have application add-ons to. And yeah, that is a big one at the moment. Yeah.
And I wouldn't even stop at the marketing and advertising. It'll be the whole cycle, right? From lead generation, sales to success, and an actual eventual customer. The easier a customer finds it to interact with you, the more happier they're going to be with your product, your service. So that whole bundle is definitely very, very limited in the focus that's been going on. From a customer transaction point of view, the likes of Square, they're making it a lot easier. But yeah, the whole process itself from start to finish, I think, is definitely a focus that should be on.
Yep. And did you guys have any other technologies or apps that you thought clients should consider adopting, but there's a relatively low uptake at the moment?
Look, for me, I mean, I'm a big fan of process automation at the moment, and that's only because we deal with large chunks of data, and we want to do any form of analysis or whatnot doing on it. So that's something that is overlooked. It's out there as well, but again, it doesn't apply in all instances. But that's just a personal favorite of mine at the moment, which I'm looking into.
I just believe every business should have a simplified app stack at least, and it's accessible these days with how cheap some of the solutions are. So I think bills and expense management, because everyone needs to sort of see what's going on there, and there is a lot of time out there spent processing that could be better invested in the business, I believe. And then the final output, if you've got that streamlined, it's running into your financial management system, and now you're able to sort of produce an output of reporting a lot more timely, a few days after the month end, as opposed to weeks after the month end. I think just that simplified stack can help any business. And it yeah, like I said, the pricing is very accessible for any SME or small business.
Awesome. Next question. Okay, how important is the customer success function in ensuring accountants and end users see value in the accounting technology? Chris, I think you're in a good position to answer this one.
Yeah, so I think sales is very important in the early stages to kind of clearly educate the potential users on the extent of the software's capabilities, how it's actually going to augment their business or your firm. This is pretty straightforward though. Sales needs to ensure that people know what they're buying and know how it should be used. Otherwise, both parties, certainly in the world of subscriptions, anything following the sale can be a massive waste of time. It's quite expensive to win a client from a software company perspective. So getting a client to sign up to a subscription and having them cancel a couple of months later because they couldn't achieve what they had been sold on, it's a lose-lose for everyone involved. And then that firm, that business, they're going to walk away with a really bad taste in their mouth associated with that software company. So from a business development perspective, sales is hugely important just to make that initial interaction as kind of honest and straightforward as possible. When it comes to actually getting the advertised value out of the tech, customer success is super important. So when you have a professional services model where your labor and your revenue are kind of causally related, so the more time you put into something, the more money you get out of it, billable hours, etc. Spending time learning new software, you can categorize that as a potential loss in revenue. That's time you could have spent actually making money doing a billable task. So if you're an accountant and you don't see success as quickly as you could, you might be considering cutting your losses, and that's a perfectly reasonable kind of thought process to go through. Customer success kind of does exactly that. They give you the best chance of seeing success as quickly as possible. They minimize your loss in terms of billable hours due to education and onboarding, and the hours put into onboarding new software, it's depending on the price of the software. Certainly in the case of Spotlight Reporting, it's always more expensive than the subscription. Accountants nowadays, depending on seniority, they're billing hundreds of dollars per hour, and it probably takes you 5-10 hours to learn Spotlight Reporting, enough to be really good with it. Forecasting, even more than that. Once you're up and running, you get all that time saving back. That's the whole point. But if you can't achieve that ROI quick enough, cut your losses, and customer success bridge that gap.
We just had the poll results came back from a question. Do you typically engage with an app/tools customer success team during implementation or at any other stage? And 63%. I suspect it'd probably be higher if we had more responses, but 63% say yes, they do engage with the customer success team. And I think that's the tools and the apps that are available now, they're becoming more complex and comprehensive, and by their nature, even if they're incredibly intuitive and easy to use, to really get the most out of them, you know, you need to have that session with the customer success manager or that customer success function. Alicia, Kian, did you have any thoughts on this one? I thought it would be interesting, I guess, from the perspective of RSM. You know, you guys obviously internally manage like a suite of apps that you use to run the business. You know, is there like a process that you go through internally where it's like your staff or your customers and you're trying to implement technology, you know, firm wide? You know, how does that process sort of run? Have you got like a customer success function internally that makes sure that what you're implementing is a success?
That's actually a great way of turning it around as well. I mean, from a clientele point of view, how important is it? It's paramount. If it's something that we've recommended and we've put forward to them, making sure that it's, you know, they see it as a success, they see the value in it. It doesn't, not only will it, you know, seem badly upon the provider of the app, but also on us, because we're the ones that put it forward. So that's definitely one thing. From an internal use, yes, we do. So, you know, we're rolling out a couple of things now. A lot of the times, you know, success is defined up front, in that we do put in the metrics to say, you know, at the end of this project, these are the deliverables that we expect. This is the timeline, and this is the manner in which we expect it in. And it is something that's tracked along the way. So it's important to kind of do that right from the outset, and, you know, define what is success to you. And any good provider will actually ask that question as well, because it's in their interest to make sure that the scope of what they're out to do has been defined up front, rather than getting to the end and looking back and saying, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this, and you know, seeing it as a waste of money or what. So I would say if it's something that the provider doesn't check in or try to instill up front, it's probably alarm bells already starting to go to say, okay, well, what's their operation style like?
I think that's a really great point, and a really important one. It's, you know, defining like what the outcomes are, and, you know, how you're gauging or measuring a success, you know, in the implementation of an app or anything really. So that's something that you guys set with the client at the very beginning to say, after we do this and it's successful, you know, here's the way that we prove that that's the case.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I said, similar to what Kian mentioned before. It's a long process in ensuring that we're doing the due diligence up front, but being very clear in what we're implementing and what are the benefits, and what will create efficiencies or user acceptance once we implement something. And it's a long progress. We don't sort of disappear after a couple of weeks. It's a constant check-in with our clients, 6 months, a year. Particularly if we're providing recurring work, it's a lot easier for our clients where we're dealing with them day to day, and it's not just a one-off implementation, to be that sort of constant, making sure everything's functioning right. But I think Kian mentioned to it before, we're always looking for the system to make sure that it's in 5-10 years still going to work. Understand people are going to potentially outgrow those at some point. Sometimes the financial management system, they might need to go to an ERP. But we're looking at, when we're implementing something, we are looking at the next 5 to 10 years, so that it's not an implementation now for only a year or two. So it's super important that we're checking in with them and seeing how things are going.
Yep.
I'll just
great point.
add one last thing at the end there. I think, and been inspired by what Kian and Alicia said, I think momentum is really important, and momentum's all about, if I take it back one more step, when you're proposing an app, there's an emotion attached with it. If there's a problem that needs to be solved and you're proposing an app to fix that ideally the business owner gets excited. Hey, I'm not going to have to worry about this problem anymore. It's worth the amount of money that I'm going to be putting into it, and I'm going to be able to focus on other things that are going to put my business in better stead than if I had to focus on this current problem. So they're excited, they're emotional, and you've just promised them, you know, we have a solution. Maybe it's not perfect, but this is the problem. This is what we're going to get out of it. The key to successful onboarding is just keeping that momentum, taking that emotion they're beginning with, and making sure that they know that they are going through the process and progress is being made. The absolute worst thing that can happen is you propose a solution, they accept it, and then, as Alicia said, they don't hear from you for a few weeks. That's not what you want to do at all. That's like a recipe for a bad deployment. And then, as Kian said, that'll reflect poorly on an accountant as well, because they'll associate you with the app recommendation, even if it's not your fault, and often it won't be. But that's why due diligence is so important, and a customer success specialist is a good sign of an app that understands why that process is so essential.
Awesome. Yeah, great answers, guys. All right, next question. So in terms of your own personal experiences, do you guys have some real world success stories where, you've had a client that's had a bit of a light bulb moment, about the technology, and it's had a really profound impact on their business's performance?
I've got, and this wasn't planned, it's actually kind of live running at the rollout stage at the moment. And funny enough, the client they're in a tech space, but they just, technology to them was obviously their way of life and a way of revenue and generating, but they never thought about technology and my accounts and my finance function. So we've been working with them over the last year and have rolled out a whole levy of stacks, whether it's expense management, forecasting, budgeting, cash flows and whatnot. We've got various levels with them. Now they're at the point where, historically they've just been running blindly saying, well, we need to hit a revenue target because our business goal for the next 4 years is this. We're actually doing, forecasting to see, hey, what revenue and what kind of headcount and what kind of capacity and planning do you need to get to that? And now they're actually making informed decisions about that revenue target, because revenue, where they say revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king, right? So it's all about the margins. Now they get an understanding about, okay, I'm working for this revenue, but to the bottom line, it means nothing. And for the extra 2% he might add, I actually have to, exert this much effort, or I'm wearing this much risk. And they're making really informed decisions about where to go, what to bid for and what not to do, and also how to plan their capacity. So, and I think it was, we generally had that realization moment where things started rolling off the bat and they went, oh, so you mean we can do this? And you kind of go, yes. And, this isn't we're not taking credit for all of it. This was their own drive behind it as well. But I think till now they weren't working with a provider that actually enabled them and provided that environment for them to think like this and come about it.
But yeah, so was there a particular catalyst in that?
Well, I think it was just poor service in the past. That was the main thing. That was the initial discussion, which we started working with them. And then when we looked at them to kind of say, you're a tech company and you still do this in such an old-fashioned manner, and started work slowly. It's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to go in there and say, okay, you need to change all of these in the next 2 weeks. It's a piecemeal process, and low-hanging fruit first, and you kind of build for it. But it's just, I guess it's part of working with advisors that think like that naturally. So there's not necessarily a catalyst. Once you start working with them, they'll always try to pull you towards that trajectory.
Nice one. Chris?
Yeah, I think, Kian, you just gave a really good pitch for driver-based scenario modeling. Yeah, so I see kind of the light bulb moments all the time here at Spotlight during product demos. I think we have a product that demos really well. But in terms of the impact to firms, a specific situation always comes to mind when I'm asked something, a question along these lines. That's HJC Accountants. They're an accounting firm. They're a Spotlight partner. They, previous to onboarding Spotlight, they offered forecasting. It's something that they advertised, but every time a client came to them or a prospective client came to them and wanted to learn about their forecasting service, they kind of dragged their feet. They weren't particularly confident. They still did it, and I'm sure they still had accurate and great quality outputs, but it wasn't the process that it could have been, and it wasn't something that made them proud or confident to kind of sell their forecasting services as much as they could. And forecasting is, one of the highest billing services an accounting firm can offer, depending on the use case. Anyway, back to HJC Accountants. They adopted Spotlight reporting and forecasting, and they made back an entire year's worth of subscription cost of Spotlight after just 2 forecasts. They went through the training, they became really confident in it, and they sort of started running. The specific forecasts from memory, one of them was like a profit optimization kind of forecasting situation where a client came to them with a tender. It was a construction company. They came to them with a tender that they were trying to bid for. They sat down with HJC accountants, went through a bunch of different pricing models, compared them, and figured out the best results so that they could, be as competitive as possible when going for the tender and also make as much money as possible. So that's kind of the profit optimization. And then the other side is, businesses, especially now, are going for financing in kind of record numbers, and bankers, investors, however you want to get that kind of cash into your business, they're wanting more and more information. So yeah, HIC accountants, that was the other one. They used it to secure a loan.
Awesome. Alicia?
Mine is probably just going back to the simpler sort of finance function. So one of the light bulb moments, which I think impacted a lot of people, was for working for a government body, rolling out Xero across 99 schools. Previously, they were using a desktop system. It was a school-specific system, and they weren't really seeing what any of the schools were doing. And this is mums and dads doing the bookkeeping, so we can imagine the quality, unfortunately, of that and accuracy. They weren't seeing...
No disrespect to mums and dads doing bookkeeping.
Yeah, sorry, no disrespect. But not especially minded people. They went for 6 months. 6 months the reporting or anything like that. So every 6 months, the financial management team for these 99 schools would have 6 months worth of data to fix, to change, to review. And mostly it was paper-based and analysing what was going on and fixing that. So they were tearing their heads out, particularly because there was an audit attached to that. But also the people at the school were struggling with using that system day to day and not really knowing what they were doing or wrong or right, because they had no guidance, because there was no timely overview of what they were doing. So ever since we implemented that, it's 99 schools times however many people were actually doing the data entry per school. That was sort of the light bulb moment that 3 years ago, they had so much pain and no oversight on what anyone was doing across all the schools, plus also having all that time to sort of fix everything, to now they're seeing everything daily. And actually able to be a bit more proactive with everyone at the school to let them know this should have had GST attached or anything like that. So I think that was a big light bulb moment of how something that we think is probably quite simple, is implementing Xero instead of an older accounting system, can actually impact a lot of people's day to day and just create a lot of efficiency all around.
Nice one.
Sorry.
No, all good. That's actually it for the questions today. Did you guys have any final points or closing comments that you wanted to make to the audience? Give another plug for the product, brand, perhaps?
Yeah, I should give another plug. If anybody attending today wants to learn about Spotlight Reporting, we do management reporting and three-way forecasting, obviously automation, cloud-based. You can send me an email at callen, so CALLEN @spotlightreporting.com, or just jump on the website, spotlightreporting.com, start a trial, play around on the website. There's heaps of content on there. You should definitely check it out. It's fantastic software.
Alicia, Kian, any closing comments?
Look, I mean, I was going to give Spotlight a plug, but Chris already did that.
Chris does it too well. He does it too well.
Put it this way: if you need someone to help you how to go through Spotlight, call Alicia. Look, from a closing remarks, I think I stand back to that sort of whole investment approach. When you're looking at technology and who to partner up with and who to work with, really invest the time in it. Particularly given if it's a critical success function of your business, you need to invest the time in it to go into it and make sure it's the right decision, and it's not something to be taken lightly. That's all. And don't be scared to lean on your advisors, whoever they may be. If you trust them and they're your advisors, they're there for a reason. And $1 spent today is probably worth the $100 you save tomorrow. So it's a way to approach it.
Alicia, anything to add to that?
No, I think Jan covered it. If anyone needs help with Spotlight, feel free to give me a call.
I think one of the great points that that will stay with me in terms of this topic is that I think you've got to really define what the success outcome looks like. I think it's just a lot of people go into apps, just it's kind of like a fad or a trend, and it's like everyone else is doing it, so I've got to do it, but they don't really define how it really is going to be successful for them and what that means. So I think that's a really important point to take home. I will give a bit of a plug to close. Guys, if those of you listening, if you want to learn more about Amica and the accounting integration and automation products that we offer, feel free to visit us at amica.com. We also have an advisor program where you guys as business advisors and accountants and bookkeepers can get listed on our directory, which is browsed by thousands of business owners every week. So I'd highly encourage you guys to check that out. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Kian, Alicia, Chris, really appreciate it. I think there was some really good discussion and really good information that people will be able to take home today. So thank you. Thank you, those of you guys that took the time to listen in today. Really appreciate it. And yeah, have a great rest of the day and rest of the week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Catch you later.